For Global Business Update, Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Good morning. First of all, a big drop on Wall Street last night, which I'll come on to, and that echoed as far as the Asia-Pacific markets are concerned this morning. Both the Hang Seng and the Shanghai Composite down about 0.25%. The Japan's Topix down about 1%, and the Nikkei falling about 1.25%. China is, for its sake, it's facing another power crunch. This time, not so much about the lack of it or the lack of generation, but it's about the heat wave, which is going right through the country at the moment. Therefore, there's a feeling that these power cuts won't last much beyond the summer. However, they have actually done an enormous amount of damage to places like Shanghai and so on. And there is power rationing in parts of the Yangtze region, and also Shanghai. It turned out the lights last night, street lights, not the power problems are therefore heavily weather related, and will probably get better once this heat wave is over, but it could take a month. This is what I'm being told from the weather forecasters and all those who know about these things. So just to recap on the United States, the Dow slumped 600 points yesterday. It was the worst day since June. The reason for that is the worry about interest rates rising and the sharpness of that. The Dow fell 643 points. The Nasdaq down 2.5%. And still the broader market, though, it's above where it was in June, but that was a big fall yesterday. And it's going to be a relatively volatile week ahead of the Jackson Hole meeting, which begins, it's the Central Bank Consortium, begins on Thursday. The chairman of the Fed will speak and no doubt add to either worries or not, as far as the markets are concerned, about the rate of tightening within an economy, particularly in the United States, which is technically I say, in recession. Europe as well, the EU suffering from inflation as well. I know that what they've tried to do is they are gradually raising interest rates in the EU, but apparently their ability to trade easily has been hampered by looming recession fears. That's bonds. There's no safety net now because obviously the EU has withdrawn that as part of their tightening program. So that's actually hampering the whole trade and the ability to trade easily in bonds as well. The latest inflation forecast for the UK comes from Citigroup. That's a day after Bank of America. This time they're forecasting that inflation will hit 18.6 by the end of the year. That'd be the highest among Western economies, certainly highest among G7, and we haven't seen price rises like this for a long time. The ONS, meanwhile, the Office of National Statistics, has been having another look at the economy as it was in 2020, and it found that it had been hit very much harder by the COVID pandemic. It fell 11%. That's certainly the worst amongst G7, and certainly the worst for, apparently they measure these kind of things for 300 years. I don't quite know how they get there, but that's what they measure. And the one thing that BA are doing, they're cancelling a further 10,000 flights over the winter. They're obviously, this is a signal that they have staff shortages. They can't cope with the resurgent demand and so on. So those flights are being cancelled. And Heathrow, for its part, is saying that the whole of the aviation industry will take 12 to 18 months to recover. Oil prices edging up after Saudi said OPEC could cut its, might, I think is probably the better word, might cut its output, but we don't know that. But European gas prices are certainly surging. More maintenance on the Russian pipeline into Germany. More fears, therefore, of a total shutdown as far as oil supplies are concerned. And basically, it's absolutely impossible to predict the price as it is now going into autumn and then into the winter as a result of that volatility. That's the global view this morning.
Okay, a couple of things to start with, Michael. The first is inflation rate in England projected to go up to 18% by January. Where is Citigroup, the investment bank, is that bank exaggerating? And if it's not exaggerating, well, it's obvious then that interest rates will still have to go up. Now, how are people expected to cope, given the fact that energy prices, will go up? Many families are already saying, well, we're not going to pay up front for, energy, commitments and all of that. Second thing about China. China has had to reduce interest rates. Now it has reduced mortgage rates as part of an attempt to make things easier. And it's saying that, it expects, in any case, good results in terms of economic growth. It's no longer, the Chinese authorities are no longer talking about 5.5% expectation. Okay, so how would this play out? The reduction of interest rates, how would it help China? Given the fact that elsewhere, what we're seeing is a rise in interest rates and a tightening of the belt. And then Elon Musk is saying that Jack Dorsey should be subpoenaed. He has been subpoenaed already. How would that help his case? He doesn't want to buy Twitter again. The Twitter guys are saying, well, you must buy it, whether you like it or not, at the rate that you agreed upon. Will Jack Dorsey testify in Elon Musk's favor? Although lawyers can call anybody to come and be a witness. Hello, Michael?
Yeah, hello. Yes. Yeah. What's your question about Elon Musk? Will he walk away, you mean?
No, Elon Musk, asking his lawyers to subpoena Jack Dorsey, former CEO of Twitter, to come and testify in his favor. Is there a possibility that would, that Jack Dorsey will support him against a company he co-founded? Yes.
Okay, so Jack Dorsey stepped down in November. He was a vociferous supporter of Elon Musk and very much supported the fact that he was going to buy Twitter. What Musk is still trying to do, and this process is just going on and on, as we suspected it would, is to try to get some sense into the kind of deal by trying to find out. Still, he says he's not sure about what the actual real audience or user volume or user amounts of Twitter is, because they've got fake accounts and there are bots and all this kind of thing. And he's hoping that Jack Dorsey will come to his rescue and will testify on his behalf as he's been subpoenaed into court. So I think that's where we are with that right now. But Jack Dorsey was, I don't know what he feels right today, but he was a strong supporter of Musk actually buying Twitter. As far as China's concerned, I mean, it's a bit like Russia, really, isn't it? It's very difficult to triangulate what's actually going on. Certainly, we had those interest rate cuts over the weekend and yesterday, which are attempting to push some demand into. There's plenty of credit. So I was saying yesterday, and that's according to one of the Hong Kong banks. It said there's plenty of credit in China. The problem is there aren't the people actually taking up that credit. So that appears to be what's going on. Will it get to its growth levels? I mean, it may well do. I mean, who knows? It's very, very difficult to say. I mentioned triangulation because Yale University, amongst others, have been looking at economies like Russia and like China and making the point quite simply that until you can actually get a clear idea of what's going on in those economies by getting more than the occasional dribbles of information that we get, it's absolutely impossible to say. So we have to take these little signs like relaxations in interest rates and so on face value and say what they're trying to do is stimulate the economy. I suspect they would say it's stimulated whether it is or it isn't, in the same way that Russia is quite clearly falsifying some of its accounts of its own economy and how it's suffering or not as far as sanctions are concerned. And finally, to hear, well, Citigroup actually joins a queue of people. Yesterday it was, the Bank of England was saying 30.3%. Yesterday, Bank of America, I think, was saying about 15%. Now, Citigroup is saying 18.6%. I mean, they make their calculations. I think, as you quite rightly say, life's going to be very tough. People are going to have been looking very, very carefully at their expenditure. I don't think anybody will necessarily perish as a result of it, but I think things will be very, very difficult indeed. And it's at times like this that the community actually comes together. I'm hoping it will this time.
Okay, Michael, any chance that the Bank of England, under pressure to tame this spiraling inflation and bring the economy under control, will increase interest rate to as high as 7%, as some are predicting?
It could do, yeah. I mean, it is quite possible. Unfortunately, we don't get an idea of that until September, which is a couple of weeks away, really, and we don't get a flavour of what they're going to do. They may well have to do that. Who knows? Unfortunately, it's very, very difficult to say, because the inflation picture, as we have just been talking about and have been illustrating over the past couple of weeks, changes day by day, as it's doing in most countries, and particularly, I suspect that inflation will leap up again. A, because of the increase in gas price, which I mentioned, and B, because it looks like Russia has cut the Nord Stream 1 completely to Germany at the moment. That's the kind of news we're getting this morning. And so the fears of a recession and, of course, an increase in interest rates because of inflation will intensify, yes.
Well, thank you very much, Michael Wilson. Thank you very much indeed. Now, for business updates across the African continent, Rotus Odiri joins us now. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, sir. It's like the Malabite morning show. That's what we have. Yeah, it's good to see you.
Don't feel impressed.
That's all. Good to see you. We begin in Northern Africa. Egypt says they're in advanced stages of their loan talks with the IMF, according to their Prime Minister, who's on your screen right now. And they've been, as you know, Egypt has been absolutely battered by the Russia invasion of Ukraine. Egypt is the largest importer of wheat on the African continent. So their finances have been absolutely hit hard. Fuel prices are also up. And so they are in advanced talks with the IMF. But take a step back, right? And think about what this war and also the COVID pandemic has done to a number of the financial structures of a number of these nations. Egypt is talking to the IMF. Tunisia is talking to the IMF. Ghana is talking to the IMF. Kenya is talking to the IMF. I think Zimbabwe is talking to the IMF. I mean, there's so many of these countries that need assistance, fiscal assistance, with their debts rising. I think even in South Africa, a number of businesses there are saying that South Africa's debt is getting astronomical. Not to talk of Nigeria and where we're. In fact, there was a business day, I think it was a business day headline yesterday saying that some people think sooner or later Nigeria will approach the IMF as well. So also in Egypt, they are launching Climate Tech Run 2022. This is ahead of the COP27 conference that's taking place in November. What Egypt is doing here, and this is in partnership with USAID, the the Export-Import Bank, Microsoft, a number of huge companies and also NGOs, is to get startups, technology startups in Egypt to reward them for focusing more on climate change. And again, it's really big. COP26 was in Glasgow last year. It's huge that COP27 is happening in Egypt on the African continent. So that's something that they're trying to do to get startups to push forward with as far as climate change is concerned. We move to Eastern Africa. This is a topic that is very, Kenya's fuel subsidies at 71 billion shillings in just 6 months. We know, again, the pressures that the countries around the world have been facing, especially developing nations, with respect to high oil prices and what that has translated to. I understand diesel has been the biggest contributor to the rise in prices as far as the subsidy burden that Kenya is facing, followed by petrol. If this subsidy was not in place, the Kenyans would be paying historic highs for fuel right now. The shilling has depreciated to the dollar. I think it's trading about 119. This 71 billion, I think, is about almost $500 million or so in what they're paying. Interestingly enough, I just mentioned the IMF. The IMF, in a new loan condition for Kenya, said that Kenya needs to drop fuel subsidies. So that gives you an indication of what would happen if Nigeria at some point was to reach out to the IMF to talk to them to get some assistance. So, but they've said that they will still continue fuel subsidies. Now that is this regime. If I know Odinga is challenging Ruto's win in Kenya as far as the presidency is concerned, will William Ruto, president-elect, will he continue those fuel subsidies? Remains to be seen, especially while they are talking to the IMF, who is now telling them that they need to drop them if they want to get a loan. We come to West Africa to Nigeria. In the pension space, PenCom wants to crack down on fake deaths. Apparently, there have been reports of individuals faking their deaths in order to collect pension payments. And I think that speaks to the level of poverty in the land, with when so many people are struggling, to where they're actually going to be faking their own deaths in order to collect money. Now, this can be easily rectified with tech and with data. Just, if somebody passes away, make sure that the records are there. And PenCom is talking to a number of financial institutions, especially PFAs, pension fund administrators, to make sure that the moment a worker passes away, they verify it and close down the accounts essentially, so that no one else can access them until the actual next of kin does so. Aviation, this has been a hot topic. We had a very lively panel discussion on the Global Business Report yesterday as far as what's going on. So apparently Nigerians are now finding ways to walk around more expensive tickets. Some are going to Ghana to fly from there internationally because it's cheaper there. Also, the Ghanaian cedi has depreciated heavily, second worst performing currency in the world after, I think, the Sri Lankan currency. So it's on a relative basis, I think folks are going there to try and take advantage of that, and also purchase tickets there. Also, we talked about, I think it was Turkish Airlines, a number of international airlines that have no longer, if you're making a purchase of it, if you're purchasing a ticket from Nigeria, you're not allowed, you can't get cheaper tickets because of the currency situation, and their funds are being, they're not able to repatriate their funds here. So their tickets are more expensive. So agents here are getting agents in other countries whose websites are, of course, domiciled in other countries to book those tickets, those Nigeria to foreign destination tickets at cheaper rates. They pay them here, and then you get the tickets and you fly from here. So that's what we're seeing on the African continent.
Okay, let's start with Kenya.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. If you are going to go to IMF, there's this thing they call IMF conditionalities.
Oh, yes,
I recall in the 80s, right?
Yes.
When the Babangida administration
85,
wanted to
86,
adopt what they call the Structural Adjustment Program.
SAP.
There was very big debate
across
Nigeria. And there are economists who still believe till today that Nigeria taking what they call the IMF pill was the beginning of our crisis.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, look, if you mismanage your economy, you go and take IMF bailout, you must also be ready to live with the consequences.
Simple.
And I've also made the argument, because, okay, let me give a graphic example. Education used to be a good place, a good sector in this country. My fellow Malabatis here.
Yes, there you go.
In those days, they used to serve us chicken, very big, appetizing chicken every Sunday in the cafeteria. You could eat to your heart's content. So it was possible then to spend more time in the library because food was not your problem. For how much? By the time you return to the room, they will have laid out your bed, everything will be clean. They will put toilet roll there. There was water, there was electricity.
It's like a 5-star hotel.
No.
Every Friday.
Nigerian universities used to be like that.
Wow.
So the only thing you needed to do was to just study and get good grades.
Right.
By the time they came with this IMF beta pill, by the time I got to University of Ibadan, I thought I was in some
a prison?
Prison. Because students started doing what they call bush attack.
Wow.
All of that was in the 80s. Today, that Nigerian education sector just continued to collapse. Bad policy, bad leadership, foolish management of resources and the economy can turn a country into something else.
Yeah.
Okay. However, some people will argue and say we didn't take bailout from IMF. But you are saying now that when Nigeria find itself beyond the debate of the 80s, but we had our crisis. With structural adjustment. And many of those recommendations were recommendations taken lifted off the books of the Bretton Woods institutions, whether we took the bailout or not. We took the pill, we took the prescriptions. Okay, now you have cited a number of countries that are going to IMF. Sri Lanka is going to IMF. You say Kenya will go to IMF. To return to your original topic, the bigger problem they also have in Kenya, beyond thinking of IMF,
Yeah.
is their relationship with China.
Yep.
Kenya is heavily indebted
Yep.
to Kenya. And Ruto is saying, well, he will take a second look at that relationship. Well, as president of Kenya, will he have an option? It's the big elephant in the room that he will still have to deal with.
Indeed.
Okay? Now, that's that about that. To go to the issue of Nigerians looking for best options with
buy
regard
tickets.
to airfares, well,
Yeah.
it's not new. Before now, many Nigerians used to travel through Morocco, through Libya, through Turkey, to go to London that they could easily access, through direct flight. But now everything has become so expensive, so you find people looking for more creative ways, right? Okay, you say people go to Accra, they go to other countries. Travel inside Africa is in itself an ordeal.
Indeed.
Sometimes when you go to those countries, you may save a little money, but you could be detained at the airport for hours on end with all the implications.
Right.
But people are so desperate, they'll say, if the aviation sector in Nigeria is not working too well, and you have to pay in dollars, or you can't get the particular class that you want, is it not better to go through Morocco, go through Kenya, go through wherever, for you to be able to save a little penny? It shouldn't be like that. And that is why we keep urging that the crisis in the aviation sector in Nigeria is something that government still needs to address.
Indeed. Indeed.
Okay, first, Kenya, you say like Kenya, like Nigeria, subsidy, somebody kicking the can down the road. The outgoing president, I think before long, he will leave office.
Oh, yes.
And his successor will have to deal with the issue of subsidy to remove and face the consequence and have good money to deal with other aspects of the economy and of their national life, or to continue with that kind of subsidy regime. What Ruben did not add about education, it was heavily subsidized by government. Yes, because at the beginning of every academic session, you will see trailers of rice from the federal government moving into the campuses.
Wow.
Paid for by the government.
Wow.
Yes, the government still subsidizes public universities. You only need to juxtapose courses in public university and that of private university. And you know that the federal government is still subsidizing university education in Nigeria.
Yep.
Medicine, for instance, the gap between what you pay in private universities and, of course, public universities is huge.
Right, right.
And you know that government is actually subsidizing the training of doctors, pharmacists, nurses, who end up leaving the country for better pastures, as
Green
it were.
drain, yeah.
Now, so the issue of subsidy, how will Kenya deal with that? I think it's the same question Nigeria will have to answer after May 29. No, it's something you cannot run away from.
Exactly.
Do you have the money to keep paying that kind of subsidy?
Yeah, no.
At one point, common sense will just tell you what to do.
Right.
And we all have to bite the bullet. Yes, it may be painful, but the money you save from that kind of regime of subsidizing fuel will go into other areas. Of course, unlike Nigeria, Kenya, they're not an oil-producing country.
Right.
So ours is even more disgraceful, if you ask me.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Well, Rotus, we'd like to thank you very much for joining us.